We're really excited to host Juliette in our first Inside the Preparation webinar. So Juliette is one of the best athletes in the world. So riding for FDJ Suez, United Suez now. I think we need to say it like this. And she has finished top 5, I think, across all the 3 major Grand Tours, and is going to participate in the Tour de France Femmes this year. So over the next 30 minutes, we're going to answer just one question: what does preparation for the Tour de France Femmes actually look like from the inside? And then we're going to follow up with a Q&A period. And so if you have any questions, please DM us on Instagram so that I can ask those questions to Juliette. All right, so let's get started. Juliette, welcome.
Hello.
Very happy to have you today.
Thank you. Very happy to be here as well.
So to start, when does the preparation for the Tour de France Femmes actually begin for you?
I think it's, pretty much in my head already the whole time, as long as it's, directly when it's finished, the Tour de France, I think you think already about the next one, and especially when you have the course revelation. So in October, it really starts when we know the course, then you already have in mind where it goes and what you need to be ready to prepare for this race. So I would say in October, November, you start planning ahead with the team, and we start planning, of course, a lot of things like the training, the races that we will need to do, and we talk a lot about the course, and then we go to the winter.
Awesome. And so in the winter, I know you have some training camps over there because I went there in December. What do they actually look like, and what are you trying to build over there?
Yeah, so basically we have in the winter like 3 camps. We have one at the start of after the off season, which is almost off the bike. Like it's pretty much a lot of meetings with the different people from the staff, which can be nutrition, doctors, so that we are just all set, that we are healthy and ready for the season. And then we have a first real training camp on the bike in December. So we normally go in Spain. That's pretty much the destination where all the teams goes. And we do a lot of hours, so on the bikes, but we also have a lot of specific testings. So we do like lactate testing. If I guess some of you know what it is. Then we also do like a 20-minute test, some nutrition tests for, especially in my team, it's for Morten. We do some really specific tests. And we just basically build the base for the training, and we get the body ready after off season. And I think it's really important also in these camps to build a bit like the team building. So we do some group activity, and we have a lot of meetings. I can go a bit in details after on this, but it's quite busy. It's especially the December camp is always full of meetings. You don't have much time to rest. But I would say the big difference compared to like a training camp in the season, like in July, preparing for the tour, it's first that you're not really in good shape. So you just really build your base to get in shape. You have way less pressure, so you're not nervous compared to when you come really close to the big goal, and you have more meetings to really plan the season.
Awesome. And can you take us a bit more into those training camps? Like how long do they last?
Yep.
What is a typical day at a training camp, maybe in December, but also the one you just did in altitude?
Sure. Yeah, I think the one of December and actually the one of January, February, they last about 10 days. And you add some travel days, normally just one. So we have 2 camps like this, and then we have in the season, it depends on your race programs, but like 2 or 3 altitude camps, which last about 3 weeks, so 21 days. We try to do 21 nights on high altitude, which can also be combined with altitude chamber. We'll go through this later. But like a normal day of training camp, I think it's nice to go through, like because I think a lot of people ask me, what's your normal training day? And they are often quite different, like day to day. But in training camp, they're quite similar. You have breakfast when you wake up, and then we go to like a room for like mobility and core to activate our body. Then we do the training, which can be between 4 and 6 hours in general. And of course, you have the rest days, which are way shorter. It can be rest or 1 hour recovery rides. Then we go to the recovery meal, which is normally prepared by our nutritionist or a food, a food, how you say, cook. And then we have some rest time, and then we have a lot of meetings. So I was thinking which kind of meeting we do. We do like the bike fitting, which I think is the most important for your building of the season, because if you are not well positioned on your bike, I think then you're going to get problems. So it's really about finding the balance about comfort and performance. And every year we have one, even if you don't change bike, because you always have some things to adjust. So it's pretty nice. And if you have the same brand, but maybe they adjusted something. So we always do bike fittings, and we do also like the insoles. We see the doctor to do a check and to see if you have any problem. We do like the concussion protocol. So in case if you crash in the season, you do like a base. We go through all these meetings. Same actually with the nutritionist. We do a whole review of your habits, and if you have the same nutritionist, he or she already knows. So you just plan more into the season. And I think the most important meeting, if we talk about the tour preparation, is for sure the meeting with our sport director and the trainer, because we talk, especially myself as a leader, we actually can discuss really our training program and the race program. So we actually in December we really make the final race program, which can change in the season if you have some problems or if you add another race, but that's really the base. And then we also have some meeting with the sponsors. They often come when we're in Spain, and they explain us a bit how they work. And it's pretty nice to talk with them, because we don't have a lot of time to talk with them in the season, and I think it's pretty important for the team. So these camps are quite busy, and but the one that we have in the season, they are way less busy. It's just really we keep only the training part, performance part, but we have way more resting and time that you have massage, that you have recovery, really focus, and you just only think about how to be fast.
Not an easy one.
No.
And so you just, I think you came back the very past few days from a new altitude camp.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain also what are the goals of a camp like that, and what you're trying to achieve while staying at altitude?
Actually, a lot of people ask me, or when I say I go to Tenerife, they're like, "Oh, nice," but you go on a high altitude because you want to improve your body's ability to transport the blood faster and just use more oxygen. So because on high altitude you have lower oxygen, so by this you actually stimulate your body to create more red blood cells and also hemoglobin. So it actually means your muscles, they can use more oxygen when you're back from altitude. And I think so that's like the science part. I will not go in details to this, but I think also what's really good on altitude camps is that we do long climbs, so we get ready for the grand tours like this, because like in Tenerife it can be up to like 3 hours of climbing, so it's pretty long, and you have a lot of elevation, so it's also kind of a different pedaling habit. So I think it translates for when you prepare for a grand tour. And it increases your endurance, and also over there you have like the team support, and like I said, you only think about cycling more or less. You think about what's the best to do, and everything is optimized, so you have really like that you are 3 weeks there, you have almost no distraction. You can just do maybe a walk, have a coffee there, but there is otherwise nothing. So it's really full focus, even more than when you're home and you need to, I don't know, do your groceries, whatever, like normal life stuff. So it's really 3 weeks where you are fully focused, and I think that's also great, and that's why we do a lot of altitude camps. And in the past it was maybe one camp a year, but it's becoming more and more, so it's pretty challenging. But it's really, you need this now to perform at the highest level. Otherwise, if you don't do this, you don't have a good enough base for us to compete.
And you just said 3 weeks, but I think you've done a little bit shorter for this camp. I think you have an altitude chamber at home now.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that's becoming kind of the norm for the providers? Why did you choose to build one in your home?
I think I can maybe not say that it's becoming the norm yet, but for sure more and more athletes try to do this at home, or to go to like center. I've done this in the past like 3 weeks actually in Besançon, where we have a center where you can do it like in small apartments, because we, like I said, for you have a lot of advantage, but we do more and more camps, so it's also more and more time away from home. So having the chamber at home allows me to spend more time at home, and also to train actually on a low level, and to have some more flat loops, or like less heavy climbing. So for example, now I did a bit more than 2 weeks in Tenerife, and I've spent like a few days in my chamber at home. So it's nice to find some speed back in the legs to be ready for the classics and the races, because we race a bit faster than the average speed I have in training in Tenerife. So no, it's really nice advantage. And but you need to have also your structure at home, like you need to have a physio, you need to have a good gym room. So it's not so easy for some athletes depending on where they live, and it's for sure cost. But yeah, I think it's a really great tool, and we see a lot of riders getting it now.
And as you said, so this is the classics block at the moment. It's a very specific period in the season.
Mm-hmm.
So you're racing hard during those races, but it's still months away from the tour that is, I think, your biggest goal of the season. So how do you balance giving everything in those races while protecting what you're building toward?
Yeah, I think it's finding the balance between racing a lot or not. I think some riders are reacting different to this. If you see, some guys who almost don't race and then they come and they're in good shape, I think that works. For me, I actually need some races, but you need to find the balance also to not get too tired and to have enough training blocks. So for me, what's the easy things is like I also prepare for Vuelta, which is now for the women at the beginning of May. So in the end, your preparation is not much different than the one for the Tour. So it really works together. So I do a bit of specific training for the classics, which are like 1-day races, and I target like the ones with the climbs, so like the Ardennes with also with Amstel, which are climbs from at least 2 minutes, and in Flèche Wallonne and Liège-Bastogne you have climbs which are longer than 5 minutes. So you in the end work a bit specific to this, but also during the altitude camp I prepared for the Vuelta, which is a bit the same preparation as for the Tour. So in the end you have in mind already that it also helps for the preparation to be in shape in August. And about like protecting in the sense of like crashing and stuff, I think it's a risk that you take for sure. You cannot be protected 100% if you race, but when I go to a race, then you should not think about it. I just focus on the race, and then you actually don't really think about it. I just go 100%. For sure, I think otherwise you cannot perform on these races. So, but I think the combination of the classics is pretty easy to mix with the Tour preparation, because the timing is quite nice.
As long. But we've seen in the past few years that the women's calendar has grown significantly, way more races, bigger races. How that actually changed the way you build the season?
Yeah, it's getting more and more that we have a lot of races. So when I got pro, it actually the best riders, they were doing all the Women World Tour races. It was just the standard, and you could actually easily do this because there were way less races. So I feel like the experienced girls who are starting to get old, like me, which I'm not so old, but we've experienced like the time where we had not so many races, and I think now it's hard to really know that you need to select those races, but it's for sure needed, because otherwise if you race too much, you cannot perform, you cannot have like the biggest peak of shape. So you really need to target the races that you want to perform. So for example, for me, in the past, I managed to do Vuelta, Giro and Tour, also 1 year with the Olympic Games as well included, but I think it's becoming harder and harder. And also mentally, if you do this, you cannot do them you cannot do this like every year. Otherwise you cannot do this for too long. So it's becoming more and more that you need to choose. So for example, this year I will do Vuelta, but not Giro, which is one of the first time for me. And we, in general, race way less. I think it would be interesting to see some statistic about like the GC riders, how many race days they have. But I think it's becoming less and less because you need to select them. So sometimes it's hard to watch from the couch races like, for example, Flanders or Roubaix. I never did Roubaix actually, but it's hard to sometimes watch them on TV, but you need to remember your goal and for the whole season.
Yeah. And so with the Vuelta and the Tour, how the next months are going to look for you? I assume you're going to maybe do another training camp. Can you take us for the next 3 months, how that looks like for you?
Yeah, so I will go now racing in the, like I said, Amstel and the Tour Ardennes with Freixois and Liège, then the Vuelta, and then maybe I will add another Spanish race, which is not sure yet, maybe Zulia. And then I will have for sure a rest period, so maybe 4 or 5 days of rest and some easy days, and then I will really start to train again with, I think that's really where my mind will switch to the Tour preparation, like fully. So I will have a little bit less than a month without race, and then I will go to some races before nationals. And after nationals, I will go to the altitude camp with the team, normally in the Alps, where we will train for 3 weeks with a lot of stuff to make us ready for the Tour. So there it will be really only thinking about the Tour, because that would be the biggest goal for me, but also for the whole team, because we want to win with Demi, who got second last year and who already won in the past. So it will be really from May that we you have like a bit less than 3 months to really get ready for the Tour.
Looking forward to it. Can you take us maybe inside a specific week, the final part of the preparation? I don't know how many hours, what kind of sessions you perform, maybe the week that you like the most.
Yeah, I actually thought about it, and in the past I never prepared only for the Tour, so it's good to know, because like I said, I always did like the Giro before, or also even the Olympic Games. So I looked back to like a specific week that I did to prepare the Giro, because it's pretty much the same as preparing for the Tour. Just when I did this, I was hoping to be in shape in Giro and then to just keep it until the Tour. So it's pretty similar, because you can keep your shape for quite long. So I looked back for a week last year that I really liked in Tignes, which was not an easy camp, because I was actually not feeling the best, but this week I was feeling well. It was a week of like 24 hours during the week, and with some strength training. So the first session was like 5 hours with some sprints, which is like a hypoxic sprint. So if any one of you know, it's like a repeated sprint in a high altitude, which is quite hard, because it's like 6 second sprint and 14 seconds of rest, and you do like 6 times, maybe 2-3 sets. So it's pretty intense. And then I did like an hour on the TT bike just to recover, just on high altitude, because to have the most effect from the altitude. And then I went again for a 2 days block with 4 hours, and this was a really specific session. I actually did 2 bike switches, so it was quite hard, because I started on the road. I did like the LS-CT test, which just measure your freshness, and it was a good warm-up for my efforts. So I switched to the TT bike, and I did like 2 sets of 20 minutes, because I was also preparing for the Giro TT. So it's going to be a bit similar to this year with the Tour, which has one time trial as well. So these 2 sets of 20 minutes were like a 7-minute threshold, 3 minutes of rest, these 2 times. And then I switched bike, and I did on the road bike some VO2 efforts. So it was a pretty solid day, I would say, and it was quite nice. And the next day, so basically in altitude, we normally do like a high intensity day on like 4 hours, and then the next day it's more endurance. So that's what I did the next day. I had 4 hours with just some fat max, which is called tempo as well. Then a rest day with no riding. So I didn't touch the bike that day, just I think a small walk. And full recovery, like massage and stuff. And then the last block, so Saturday, Sunday, was a 2 days block again, with some TT on the Saturday, with like 2 times 18 minutes, a bit similar to the other one, but like over under, which is a really nice work to manage to do 18 minutes on the TT position, but that it's still quite fun to do, so that you don't see 18 minutes on your computer, but more like 2 and 3 minutes. And then on the road bike, I did quite similar, but also with some punchy efforts with some VO2 max that I really like. And the day after this was, for sure, I was quite tired, I remember, but I had 5 hours with the sprints that I did also in the beginning of the week. So Yeah, that's a pretty big week, but it's good to know we don't do them a lot of times. Also during the season, like I did in the plan, it's also, yeah, recovery is really important as well, and to not always overload, because I think otherwise you really don't you cannot handle it for too long. And you also, this time I was really, yeah, I could do all the training as planned, but sometimes you really need to adjust. We can come back to this later. But yeah, it was a really solid week on altitude.
Yeah, a big one. Yeah, can you explain a bit more? How do you balance between volume, intensity, recovery in those past few weeks? So we go into a bit more details.
Yeah, I think the key is just listening to yourself and to what tells also your data, if you're measuring them like in overnight and stuff like this, but mostly to your feeling and communication. For myself, it's also communicating with my coach, but actually with their experience, you also learn to trust your feeling. For example, in Tenerife, I got a bit sick when I started the camp. So then it was really about finding the balance between still doing the volume, but managing to do the intensity a bit less and to delay them a bit. So it was really, yeah, listening to how I felt in the morning, how I felt on the bike, and you just need to adjust every time. And it's about finding the balance between training a lot, but also recovering enough. So it's, yeah, I think the base of training, but it's maybe the most challenging one, because you want to do a lot, but sometimes you need to listen to your body and to just actually accept what your body is able to do at the moment. So sometimes it can be frustrating if you skip some efforts which were planned, but sometimes that's what your body can do. So yeah, it's a continuous fight to with yourself sometimes, but it's, yeah, really what I found really interesting with training, because you need to be flexible every time and to, yeah, to look ahead.
And what is your favorite session? Is it the hypoxic sprints that you mentioned, or something else?
They are not too bad because they're quite short. Like I was talking with my teammate Evita at the training camp, because she's always quite stressed for them, but at least it's just like 2.5 minutes of efforts. But I have a session that I really liked, and I do it actually quite often. So it's like VO2 combined with some lactic effort. So it's I put it actually in the plan, and sometimes it's a bit changing a bit, but like you can do 1.5 minutes of VO2 effort. So quite high power, and then you sprint for 30 seconds full gas, which is quite hard, because when you're already on your VO2 max power, you think, I don't know if I can still manage to go higher than this. And actually you can really surprise yourself, and it's pretty much like a race simulation, because you really need to go full gas. So I really like this session, because mentally it always gives me confidence for the race. I did this session a few days ago, and then you feel really ready to race, and you actually feel that you can improve quite quickly. You feel the benefits actually directly, which sometimes can be a bit different if you do like a tempo or threshold. They work also really well, but it takes a bit more time to build. So yeah, this session is mentally really nice, but I think you need a good day, and I was quite lucky, because every time I did this session I felt good. So yeah, that's my favorite session, but yeah, there is a few sessions that I'm less looking forward to.
And I think I'm gonna try this session as well, because I'm following the plan that you created on
Great.
on Vekta. So I'm gonna try it
Maybe
soon. I
some
don't know
people
when,
will not like it, but sorry if I make you in pain, but it will help.
Yeah. So for those who wanna try it as well, feel free to go and try the plan that Juliette created on Vekta. So yeah, with everything that we've talked about today, what do you think transfers to an amateur athlete listening today, and how can they apply similar concepts to their training?
I think a lot can transfer, for sure. Maybe not the altitude camps, because they are quite specific to because you need 3 weeks. So I think it's not so easy for people to plan altitude camps, even though with the chamber it could be an option now. But I think the biggest thing that you can transfer is the planning. So planning ahead, and goal setting. I always learned this since I'm young. Like you need to set goals for yourself. It can be a result, but it can also be some specific things that you want to improve for yourself. And you need to plan in advance when you want to be in good shape and what you want to improve. And I think also what I said about like building your base in the winter. So in the winter, or like when you start your preparation, is really important. Like the nutrition, being healthy, having a good position on your bike. I think that's really the fundamentals that really apply to amateurs, because it's really important. Like I said, it's just building your base. And otherwise, what can be a bit different, I think if you have less time, for sure, it's a bit more concentrated on intensities. So, for example, as professional, we do a lot of volume, but I think when you have less time, you have just a bit less volume, but it's pretty much the same intensity. And I think also what really transfers is just how much you push yourself and how well you want to reach your goal. I think that's the motivation is for sure. I think it's not easier when you are amateur to train. I have a lot of friends who train, and I think they suffer as much as I do. And well, also when you want to go in the rain and stuff like this, it's not always easy. But I think what really transfers is your commitment and setting your goals.
And what do you think is the biggest misconception amateurs have about how professionals actually train?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I'm curious about what people think, but I think the first thing is that when you tell someone that you're pro, like they are scared to come riding with you because they think you ride full gas the whole time, but actually they drop you on the first kick that you have, because we actually don't ride full gas the whole time. If you have a endurance ride, we actually go easy, just really respecting our zones. But when we have to go, then we really go for the efforts. So I think people think that we always ride full gas, which is not the case. And I think it's really important it's a good advice actually for amateurs that you can see it also on like social media about the running. People say it's really getting more famous, that people understand that they actually need to go slow and long to be strong. So it's like the polarized training. You need to go slow when you need to and go fast when you need to. I think that's pretty easy said, but it's not so easy to do sometimes, especially when you go out riding with some people. And I was also thinking that people, like if I tell someone that I'm professional, they always ask me, "Oh, are you allowed to eat this? Are you allowed to eat this?" And for sure, the weight is really a big topic, and we need to have a good ratio between weight and power. But I think we basically eat a lot compared to what people think, because you need to do full well enough, and especially for women, if there are some in this webinar, to not lose your period and stuff. I think it's really important, and we eat well and we eat enough. And I think you always need to find the balance between performance, but also eating nice things and enjoying sometimes. So I think that some people don't realize we actually eat nice things.
And as final question, for people listening, what do you think most athletes are missing in the way they approach their season?
Yeah, it's hard to know depending on, for sure, what the person did. But I think, like I said, the foundation in the winter, I think that's what people miss sometimes, or like I said, winter, but I mean, it's so automatic for me. But the foundation from your training block, I think it's really important to have that first block where you do a lot of hours, take time for your body to build and to get ready, and to have like that structured plan. Because I think if you go out riding just whenever you want, I think that's quite hard sometimes to be strict enough on yourself if you don't follow a plan. And I think it's great to have that structure to help you and have that bit more discipline, even though you need to be flexible for sure, depending on how you feel. And I think otherwise it's about going hard in training. So I think if some people just throw themselves in training and they go full gas riding, I think it doesn't work. So it's also about just really listening to when you need to go hard.
Thanks a lot. So I think that was all for the questions I had on my side.
Great.
So thank you very much for sharing all of this with us today.
Welcome.
And I collected a few questions that we got on Instagram today that people were asking. So the first one I saved is, how different is your training now compared to a few years ago, and how has it evolved?
Yeah, so actually I changed teams. So it's my second season with FDJ United Suez, and I was in the past for more than 8 years with my former teams, and I had different trainers there. But I had one that I had for 5 seasons, so it was quite the same training every time for sure for 5 years. So it was when I switched to FDG, it was quite a big change, because we sit down and we actually really talked a lot about what I wanted to improve, which was mostly my my VO2 max, which I felt was quite lacking, like to follow attacks and to be stronger in shorter climbs, because I was always having to pace myself in the long climbs to when there were attacks. So this is what really we changed last year. And last season we again sat down after the season, and for now in the whole winter we also switched a bit to getting back to some like fatigue resistance training, some more threshold. So finding that balance between the VO2 max training and the threshold. So I think we did a good job so far this year to manage this, but it was the biggest change. And also, like I said, like focusing more on a specific race, like for example, now the Tour is really the big goal. And so to race a bit less, because the last, I don't know, I think since the Tour is got created for the women again, I did always the 3 Grand Tours that we have, which are not 3 weeks, of course, but they are quite hard still mentally and physically. So it was always quite a challenge to combine the 3. So I think this is also the biggest change in my training.
Perfect. And now we have Claire, who asked, how do you know when you're truly ready for a race? Is it a feeling or is it in the data?
I think, that's a good question to know when you are ready. Sometimes you feel it for sure, but the data help also to tell you that you are ready. But sometimes it comes just really last moment. Like last year, I struggled a lot in Giro. I was a bit sick. I didn't feel good. And after the Giro, I also didn't feel good. And the Tour was coming. So just 2 weeks after the Giro. And I had a good feeling just 2 days before the Tour, where I was like, okay, I think I feel like myself again and ready to race. So sometimes the data tells you, the feelings tell you, but I think it comes sometimes really last. So I think, good advice is to not stress if you're not feeling the best. Like also like today, I felt not so good in my training, but the data are still okay and you come close to the race. So I think sometimes you just need to trust the plan and accept that before the race, sometimes you might not feel great.
And now we have Lara that is listening, and she says, I'm 16 years old. How many hours would I need to train to reach a good level?
I think, that's nice to train at the 16 years old. I also did this. And I think you need to find a combination with the study as well. I think it's really, really key to have that good balance. For myself, I was lucky to have a school where I had some time to train, but I think you should not overtrain, even though I think the teams are looking more and more into like U17 and junior. But I think you need to take your time, and actually I cannot say like how many hours you should train. I think it's really depending on yourself and on your level and on plenty of things, but I think you should not do those weeks of 24 hours for sure. It's way less, and mainly on building a bit like the base, doing some endurance ride, and mostly I think the big advice for 16 years old, I think, is to have fun. And I remember I did a lot of group rides where you just do some fun trainings and basically learn how to race, how to train, learn the basics, learn some things about nutrition, and ask people some advice. I think that's really the key.
And now we have a question from Roman. Where do you see the next big upgrade in cycling that will drastically boost performance? Mechanics, technology, science, or psychology?
Oh, I think everything can surprise us. I think if you look back to a few years ago, every time you think, wow, that was really different compared to now. I think in training, what really can help is like what we have now with Vekta, is like the AA based things, because I think it's getting really more and more popular in every domain. So not only the sport, but like every kind of things. The artificial intelligence is getting bigger, and I think it will be a really big factor in training. But for sure, the psychology also is a big part, I think, which is not so famous, I would say. Sometimes people still think that you need to have a problem to see a psychologist and stuff like this, but I think it will be also getting bigger in the next years, because cycling is actually getting harder and harder, and you need to be really on top of everything. And I think mental is really important. So I think this can surprise us, and otherwise, I think for sure with the bike you can improve, but it will not make us so much faster than we are now, I think.
Marcus is asking one piece of advice to an amateur preparing for the first big event. What would it be?
I think we went through a bit during this webinar, but I would say, first, go a bit backwards from your time. For example, if like I did this, you go from August and then you go backwards to the start of this, and you just set the goal that you want to reach, what you want to improve, what you really want to do for yourself, what you want to stick to. And then you need to have fun, enjoy what you do, and find the balance between being really disciplined but also listening to your feelings.
And on your side, do you do other sports alongside cycling to complement your training? I know you mentioned strengths, but can you explain?
Yeah. Actually, so it's good to know I'm almost only good at cycling. My friends always make fun about this, but I actually, for sure, we do a lot of strength training, which I didn't include in the plan because I think it's quite specific. But I think it's really great if you do this next to your bike activity, because it's really important to protect the muscle, and then also to try to work on some specific things to make you better. I actually like to do some yoga and Pilates also next to cycling, also for the mental part, but also for the core. I think it's really a great tool, and I like to do some walk and stuff. And otherwise, I change also the bikes. So I also like to go for mountain bike rides or gravel rides. I have the chance to have some nice trails where I live, so that's really nice to switch a bit activities for the mental side, at least for me. Because if you go on the gravel or mountain bike, you're just fully in the nature and a bit more the essence of cycling. And in the past I did some BMX as well, which I don't do anymore for a really long time, but I tried to do some running, but I should follow a plan also more strictly, I think, because I always start too fast with running. With the good, if you have the good cardio endurance, it's really easy to fool yourself to think that you're fine, but actually then your body comes back and tell you that your body needs to train also for running. So I think in the future I want to do this better.
Changing a little bit topic, but what is the difference between how pros structure a week versus most amateurs?
Yeah, so I think also, like I said, it's mostly that we structure the week depending on our training. And I think with amateurs, if you have a work, it's more the work that structure when you can train. So I think you optimize way more your session. Like I said, it's a bit more concentrated on intensity. I think that's the biggest difference, because we have time to do a lot of volume, even though some people will maybe choose the plan from 14 to 18 hours a week, which is already a lot of hours in my opinion. So these people can choose a bit more, and it's pretty much similar to, I think, how we can train, but we just have maybe more structure around. So more feedbacks from professional around us. So the trainers, the nutritionists, everyone who is around us, we are just way more monitored. I think that's the biggest difference. But otherwise, the training itself, I think, is not much different.
Awesome. I think we are right on time for today. So thanks a lot for all those answers and taking us through your preparation for the tour for this season. Super excited to watch you racing again this weekend and over the next few months. And for all listening, thanks a lot for taking time to join. As we mentioned, so Juliette prepared a plan on Vekta, so we're happy to offer you 20% discount for those who want to follow it over the next months and to prepare for an event. So you're going to receive an email with information. And thanks a lot, Juliette, for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
And hope to see you soon.